There's no one I'd rather work with in a great part in a bad movie. At the age of 60, Diane Lane finally talks about how she avoided Marlon Brando in Hollywood. From the Cotton Club to Superman, they almost ran into each other, until she found out what really happened at the last Parisian Tango. You'll see both stars in a new light after hearing the truth about her choice. She was born in New York City on January 22, 1965. It's funny that Diane was born on the same day that Man of La Mancha opened on Broadway. It was almost like a sign that she would be famous someday. Her parents were very different from each other. Was a passionate acting coach in New York's theater scene. He was known for being strong and daring in the way he taught. He helped Al Pacino get through a 2-day acting marathon on coffee alone. She lived a fancy life as a bar singer named Colleen, who had a beautiful voice. In 1957, she was even a Playboy centerfold. Her stage name was the Siren of Second Avenue, selling more than 400,000 copies of her magazine. She sang a duet with Frank Sinatra once, which she described as both exciting and scary. Colleen met Burr when she tried out for one of his experimental shows, a strange version of Alice in Wonderland that took place in a subway car. Very quickly, they fell in love. After 3 weeks, they ran away together and got married in Atlantic City by an Elvis actor. Diane was their only child. She got her father's toughness and her mother's beauty. Their marriage didn't last, though. It broke up 13 days after Diane was born. In one fight, Colleen threw Bert's valuable books out the window, which was very dramatic. In her words, it was the great literary rainfall of 1965. Her life turned into a tug of war after she got divorced. She lived with a group of artists in Mexico for 6 months with her mother. To see what the other parent could do, her dad pulled Diane out of kindergarten for an unexpected road trip to see some theater in the South. In the end, they came to an odd agreement about who would have care. They met at Central Park's Bethesda Fountain on the solstices and equinoxes to trade custody. A lot of the time, crowds formed thinking the exchanges were shows. One time, Bert showed up dressed as King Lear and Colleen as Lady Macbeth. This turned the handoff into an unplanned Shakespeare show. Diane dealt with the chaos and later joked that most kids had phantom friends. I thought I was stable. Diane first tried acting with La Mama Experimental Theater Club when she was 6 years old. Her first part was in a crazy play called Medea. As a sign of tragedy, the director put raw meat on the stage, and Diane had to say lines in ancient Greek. As she walked onto the stage on a huge papier-mâché egg, she gave a speech while hanging upside down from a rope. People both liked and didn't like the show for 12 weeks. Diane was called a natural force by her critics. It was the start of her love for parts that are brave and strong. Diane and Meryl Streep were both in the Cherry Orchard at Lincoln Center when Diane was 12 years old. She was dressed as an apple spirit that lit up at night thanks to a special paint job. But in one scene, she did an intense dance that took months to prepare. For the most part, she had to stay still. Meryl became Diane's teacher and helped her practice and learn how to keep calm on stage. They were amazed at how well Diane could play against Meryl and called her the future of acting. In the end, Diane said, "After that, nothing scared me. It was like going to the best acting school in the world to work with Meryl." The movie A Little Romance, which came out on August 22, 1979, was her big break. That's what she did, a smart American teen in Paris. And both audiences and reviewers loved what she did. Laurence Olivier, a famous actor who was 72 years old at the time, even let her work with him. Olivier thought Diane was so good that he called her the new Grace Kelly, which was a big deal for her early career. It wasn't easy to get the part. More than 1,000 girls tried out. Diane had to lie about her age to have a chance. She said she was 13 when she was only 12. George Roy Hill, the director, liked her screen test a lot, especially when she did a part in French, which she knew how to do well from her theater group. In July 1978, filming began in Paris. Diane even spent her 13th birthday on set in Venice, where she was filming a romantic scene under the Bridge of Sighs. Diane became a star overnight when the movie did well. She was even on the cover of Time magazine on August 13, 1979, as one of Hollywood's smart kids. But she didn't always enjoy being famous. She had a panic attack on September 5, 1979, after being surrounded by fans in a New York restaurant. This shows how hard it was to deal with her sudden fame. Diane's personal life was a mess, even though her work was going well. On June 12, 1980, She ran away to Los Angeles with only $20 and a bag of clothes. She was only 15 years old. Diane stayed with friends in Los Angeles and tried to focus on interviews. But she missed some great chances, like a part in The King of Comedy. On August 18, 1980, her mother found her and took her back to Georgia against her will. This made things worse. This led to a very heated fight over custody. On September 9, 1980, her father asked for custody, saying that her mother was unfit because she drank too much and was acting badly. Diane had to speak in court and remember painful times when she was neglected, like when she was 6 years old and left alone in a hotel room for 3 days. The case went on for weeks, which made her think about the hard times she had as a kid. Even with these problems, Diane's performing career kept getting better. She was in 2 big Francis Ford Coppola movies in 1983, The Outsiders and Rumblefish. Both shows were based on S.E. Hinton's books and had a young cast that included actors like Tom Cruise, Rob Lowe, and Matt Dillon, who would go on to become big stars. Nicole played Cherry Valance in The Outsiders. As a girl who was torn between 2 social groups, the cast became close on set and often got into fun trouble together. On May 12, 1982, Diane and her co-stars were caught swimming in a hotel fountain late at night. The cops detained them for a short time. The movie came out on March 25, 1983, and Diane's acting was praised for being honest and deep. Diane started working on Rumblefish soon after finishing The Outsiders. In that show, she played the main character's girlfriend, Patty. Diane was inspired to try new things as an actor by the movie's unique style, which was mostly black and white. Coppola often asked for more than one take, which made her tired but helped her grow. Diane had to make a big choice in 1983 that could have changed her job. She had to pick between 2 movies. Splash is a romantic comedy about a man who falls in love with a fish. Streets of Fire is a darker story with rock and roll influences. Diane picked Streets of Fire in part because she didn't want to be seen as a good girl all the time. The director, Walter Hill, flew her to Chicago himself on August 30th, 1983. She sang Bruce Springsteen's Fire for a screen test. Hill liked how raw she was and offered her the part of Ellen Am, a rock singer who has been kidnapped. She thought that this tough part would help her grow as an actress and show a new side of her. At the same time, Diane worked on one more difficult job at the same time, Coppola's The Cotton Club. She played Cicero's wife Vera, a beautiful woman who is torn between 2 guys. Diane worked hard to get ready for the part. She studied 1930s fashion for weeks and even wore clothes from that time to get into character. But there were a lot of problems making the movie. The cost kept going up, and delays were always happening because of problems between Coppola and the producers. Diane saw Coppola and director Robert Evans get into a big fight on September 23, 1983. Filming had to stop for days. Diane's personal life was hurt by the stress of the long shoot, which went on until March 1984. It caused her to break up with actor Christopher Atkins. She also got a small injury when a fake gun went off during a scene on October 12, 1983. When The Cotton Club finally came out on December 14, 1984, it didn't do well at the box office and got mixed reviews. The Cotton Club came out in 1984 and was a big hit for Diane Lane. The movie didn't do as well as everyone thought it would. It only made $25.9 million, even though it cost $58 million to make. When Diane failed, it broke her heart because she had turned down parts in movies like Splash, which were dangerous to be in. She shocked Hollywood when she quit acting altogether when she was only 19 years old. It came as a big surprise because Diane had been acting since she was 6 years old and had already been in 14 movies by the time she was 18. She had also worked with famous actors like Laurence Olivier. People began to wonder if her career, which looked like it would go well, was over before it even started. Diane took a break and was out of the public eye for 3 years. She used this time to plan her future. She went on tour with her boyfriend, a rock singer, learned how to garden, and gave acting a lot of thought. She had plenty of cash on hand to live well, so taking a step back wasn't about money. It was to find out if she really wanted to be an actress. Later, she said that this time was very important for her personal growth because she had felt like her job was more about making her acting coach father, Burt Lane, happy than following her own dreams. She could also make up with her mother, Colleen Farrington, during this break. Diane's family life had been very up and down, and she and her mother had stopped talking to each other years ago. Diane acted out by not telling her dad about her trip to Los Angeles with her co-star Christopher Atkins. She got angry so her mother took her back to Georgia. This caused a big fight in court. She didn't talk to her mom again for 3 years after that. But after the Cotton Club failed, Diane chose to make things right between them. She moved to Georgia to live with her mom and worked hard to get along with her again. This was her task, and she said it was important to get her mom back in her life. Diane went back to acting in 1987 and was in 2 very different movies. The first was Lady Beware, a thriller that was made straight to video. She played Katia Yarno, a window dresser who gets caught with a stalker in a dangerous position. The part was brave and grown-up, and it even had a sex scene. Diane was ready to take risks to get her business back on track. The Big Town, her second movie that year, was a thriller set in Chicago in the 1950s. Diane played the stripper Lori Dane, who falls in love with Matt Dillon's character, a dice player. The movie also had well-known stars like Bruce Dern and Tommy Lee Jones. Diane was able to show her range in these 2 movies, which ranged from a creepy independent film to a more popular drama. They were small steps, but they helped her get back on track in Hollywood. In 1989, the Western miniseries Lonesome Dove, which was based on a book by Larry McMurtry, was her real return. She played Lorena Wood, a prostitute who wants a better life. The part was complicated and dramatic, and Diane did a great job with it. A big hit, the show got 18 Emmy nominations and was seen by millions of people. Diane was nominated for a Primetime Emmy, which was a big deal for her business. It was clear she was no longer a kid star. She had trained to be a serious performer. Diane worked hard to rebuild her business one step at a time in the 1990s. She picked roles that showed her range with care, alternating between big-budget movies and smaller, independent projects. She played Paulette Goddard in Chaplin, 1992, with Robert Downey Jr. in 1992. She was in My New Gun, which got good reviews at Cannes. And in 1993, she was in Indian Summer, a deeply moving ensemble picture. She also played bigger parts, like in Judge Dredd, 1995, with Sylvester Stallone, which made her more well-known even though it wasn't a hit. Diane had shown her worth again by the end of the decade. She wasn't just a kid star. She was also a versatile actress who could make it in a tough business. Her work changed a lot after she was in A Walk on the Moon, 1999. The movie came out on April 2nd, 1999. It didn't do very well at the box office, but reviewers really liked it. In the 1960s, Lane played Pearl Kantrowitz, a housewife who felt stuck in her life. During a trip with her family to the Catskills, she slept with a free-spirited blouse seller. Big events like Woodstock and the Apollo 11 moon landing gave the story more meaning to who she was. Some critics said she did a great job of showing how a woman feels when she has to choose between her family and her own wants. The New York Times said the movie was warm and made them think. Lane was nominated for Best Female Lead at the Independent Spirit Awards because of how she played the part. This was her first big award in years. Tony Goldwyn, who directed the movie, told Lane to look deeper into her feelings. One scene got a lot of attention. It showed Pearl having a big realization about herself while listening to To Sir with Love on the radio. The scene was 3 minutes long, had no speech, and was shot all at once. Hollywood paid a lot of attention to it, and many people see it as a turning point in Lane's career. The Perfect Storm 2000, which came out on June 30th, was another big hit for her. The hit movie was based on a true story about a fishing boat called the Andrea Gale that got caught in a storm that killed many people. The movie made $328.7 million internationally, which is a huge hit considering it cost between $120 and $140 million to make. Lane played Bobby Shatford's love, Christina Cotter, who was played by Mark Wahlberg. Many people said she did a great job of showing how painful it is to wait for news about a loved one who has been lost at sea. It was hard to make the movie. Some of the time, the crew had to work in bad weather, like during hurricanes. It was rough for a lot of the players, and Wahlberg almost drowned twice. Even though there were problems, the movie was a hit and made Lane a bigger name in Hollywood. Then Unfaithful came out in 2002, the part that made her career. The movie, which came out on May 10th, made $119.1 million around the world, even though it cost $50 million to make. Olivier Martinez played a young French book buyer named Connie Sumner, who has an affair with a suburban wife played by Lane. The New York Film Critics Circle and the National Society of Film Critics both gave her awards for Best Actress for her work. She was also up for a SAG Award, an Oscar, and a Golden Globe. People who saw her act said it was powerful and honest, with one look showing everything from guilt to passion to fear. One reviewer said her work was shocking and that her face spoke louder than than words. It wasn't easy to play the part. Many close-up scenes in the movie, but one on the train stood out. It showed Connie going over her affair in her mind through flashbacks while she felt both guilty and excited. Adrian Lyne, the director, made her do the scene more than once so that he could get every feeling. In a different tough scene, Lane and Martinez had to do a very hard scene on the stairs that left them completely worn out. Lane later said that it was just as tiring as giving birth. Diane Lane has been in love, been hurt, and been strong in her personal life. The two met in Paris in December 1984, when Diane was there to promote her movie The Cotton Club. Her star was growing at age 19, and his was charming at age 27. They met at a fancy party at the Hotel Ritz and hit it off right away, even though Diane didn't say much. French and Lambert's English wasn't very good. They drove around Paris together for 3 weeks after that. They went to secret coffee shops, walked along the Seine, and even had a romantic moment at the top of the Eiffel Tower. It wasn't long, but they were deeply in love during that time. She had to go back to Hollywood, but they said they would stay in touch. In 1986, 2 years later, they met again in Rome while filming After the Rain. This time, their bond got stronger. Lisa and Lambert got married in 1988. Their wedding was in Santa Fe, New Mexico on October 1st, and it was full of close family and friends. The wedding was small and lovely. Diane wore a lace dress and Lambert wore a tux. The mountains in the background made the event feel magical. On September 5th, 1993, 5 years after that, they had their daughter, Eleanor Jasmine Lambert. There was so much happiness in their lives after having Eleanor that Diane quit acting to focus on raising her. By living in both Los Angeles and Paris at different times, they made sure Eleanor learned about both countries. However, their jobs made things hard. They had to spend a lot of time apart for shooting, which made it hard for them to stay together. Diane filed for divorce on July 7, 1994, saying that she and her husband had problems that could not be solved. A lot of people were shocked because they looked like such a happy pair. Even though they were no longer together, they decided to share custody of Eleanor. Since Lambert had to work in Europe, Diane would be in charge of parenting most of the time. March 1st, 1994, was the last day of the split. Even though Diane's marriage didn't last, she learned a lot from it and got her daughter Eleanor as a gift. Diane fell in love again after many years. In 2002, she met Josh Brolin, an actor, at a party put on by his aunt Barbra Streisand. At first, they were both wary, but as time went on, their bond got stronger. In July 2003, Josh asked Diane to marry him at a party at his ranch for the 4th of July. He gave her a one-of-a-kind old diamond ring as a gift. She said yes, and on August 15, 2004, they got married at Josh's ranch in a small wedding. Diane wore a champagne-colored dress, and Josh wore a black suit. The wedding was simple and beautiful. At sunset, under white roses, they said their vows. With family and friends nearby, things seemed great in their marriage at first, but they quickly became rocky. On December 20th, 2004, only 4 months after they got married, there was a fight at their house. Diane said Josh hit her, so she called the cops. He was arrested for hitting a woman, but he was freed quickly. Representatives for both sides said it was just a mistake, and Diane didn't file any charges. Going to therapy helped them work through their problems, and they looked happy in public for a few years. But as time went on, the stress of their jobs and the effects of what happened made it harder for them to stay together. Diane filed for divorce on February 27, 2013, saying that she and her husband could no longer get along. December 2, 2013, was the last day of the split. Josh later admitted to what happened in an interview, but Diane decided not to talk about it. She was focused on her job and getting ahead. Through her life, Diane Lane has shown how strong and determined she is. Even when love got hard, she always found a way to grow and move on. She has shown strength and grace as an actress, a mother, and a person who has to deal with public criticism. It was a big year for Diane Lane's work in the early 2000s. In the 2003 movie Under the Tuscan Sun, she played Frances Mays, a woman who buys a house in Italy to start over after getting divorced. The movie made almost $59 million, even though it only cost $18 million to make. Diane did a great job because she made Frances seem real and like someone they could relate to. Some people said she was very good at showing how she felt with just a look or a small movement. The movie did more than just make money. A lot of Americans began to dream of having homes in Tuscany after seeing it. When it got out, real estate agents even got 20% more calls. Diane spent 10 weeks shooting in Italy, where she learned the language and how to cook so she could fully enter the role. Diane played Sarah, a divorce teacher looking to find love online in Must Love Dogs, 2005, which came out 2 years later. The movie did pretty well, making about $58 million. Some reviewers said that the best thing about the movie was how well she and John Cusack got along. Diane wasn't the first person who wanted the part. Sandra Bullock was put in the running, but she had to back out. Diane went to dog shelters in New York City to get ready, and even took in a stray dog to connect with her character. It wasn't easy to film. Rainstorms pushed back the plans. Diane, on the other hand, kept things business and made every scene fun and warm. She played Martha Kent, Superman's foster mother, in the 2013 movie Man of Steel. The movie made $668 million, which was one of her biggest hits ever. Moving, especially in the part she played with Henry Cavill. She got ready for the part by visiting farms, learning how to drive a tractor, and watching people live in the country. Diane said that Martha was based on her own mother, who she said was strong without being obvious. As Martha, she came back in Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice 2016, and Justice League 2017. A lot of people had different opinions on the scene in Batman vs. Superman, where Batman saves Martha. Diane stated that it was about showing empathy for someone else's pain. There were plans for a Superman movie, but it never came together. Diane said she wished she could have told more of Martha's story, but the way she played the character became famous and has even affected how the character is written in comics today. Diane turned on House of Cards on TV, and Shepard, a strong businesswoman and Claire Underwood's foe, was played by her. People said that her act had a lot of depth and was quiet. Diane got ready by reading about real lobbyists and female CEOs. She wanted to get a sense of how charming and tough these women were. People who reviewed the show loved how she added a new energy to the last season. Diane played the tough part of Jennifer Brown, a senator who becomes president after a strange event kills almost all men, in The Last Man, which came out in 2021. Even though the show was only on for one season, Diane's acting made it stand out. It was about survival and power. She got ready for the part by doing a lot of intense exercise and learning how to play a leader in a disaster. She initially turned down the part because it would require a long commitment, but the producer persuaded her by describing the complexity of the character. Diane's work has been interesting and motivating because she isn't afraid to take risks and try new things. Diane Lane began playing when she was a child in the 1970s. At the same time, movies like The Godfather and Last Tango in Paris were giving Marlon Brando a big boost. Because of how their lives overlapped, the idea of these two stars working together is very interesting. At times, they looked like they could have been in the same movie, but it didn't work out. In 1984, he had one of these chances with the Cotton Club. Francis Ford Coppola, who had worked with both Brando and Lane, wanted Brando to play Dutch Schultz. Lane had already played Vera Cicero in the movie. They would have been on screen together if Brando had joined the group. After that, Brando got another chance when he acted in The Score in 2001. It was one of his last movies. After her walk on the moon, Lane was at the top of her game at that point. They might have worked together for the first time if she had been cast in The Score. Through the Superman movies, Lane and Brando also had a strange link, even though they lived in very different times. In the 1978 movie Superman, Brando played Jor-El, and in the 2013 movie Man of Steel, Lane played Martha Kentucky. You can't help but wonder what their lives would have been like if their jobs had gone in a different direction. There are good reasons Lane might not have worked with Brando, though. She hasn't hidden how hard it was for her to work with powerful guys in Hollywood, mostly when she was younger. She said in an interview that some guys came up to her inappropriately when she was only 13. People said that Brando was hard to work with and unreliable, so Lane might not have liked working with him. Lane has always been very picky about the part she plays. She said that she would rather have a great part in a bad movie than a bad part in a good movie. This proves she cared about the quality of her parts, not just the big stars she played. She also cared about efficiency and respect on set, and Brando's unpredictable behavior may have gone against those values. The movie Last Tango in Paris caused a lot of trouble because Brando and the director were accused of taking advantage of the actress Maria Schneider. This could have made Lane even less likely to work with him. Lane turned 60 years old on January 22, 2025, and she thought back on her long career. She said that this important event made her feel free again. She said in an interview, "At 60, I feel more free than ever before. It's no longer important to me to be someone else's idea of an actor." She has taken on new and difficult tasks because she is sure of herself, and even start making things. Lane told some interesting tales about her early days in Hollywood. She said she had turned down The Outsiders 3 times before Coppola persuaded her to take the part, which was her big break. She thought about giving up acting in the mid-1990s because she didn't feel like she belonged in the business. But talking to star Jessica Lange made her want to keep going. Then in the early 2000s, her part in Unfaithful changed everything. She was nominated for an Oscar for it, and it gave her the chance to play roles with more depth. Lane is now happy about the chances that streaming services are giving older actors. She said that people want to read stories about women my age. She also talked about the movement #MeToo and how Hollywood is beginning to change. She said it was long overdue, but it's good to see the business becoming more respectful and open to everyone. Lane is ready for a new phase in her work now that she is in her 60s. She wants to direct her first movie soon, but she hasn't said much about it yet. She said, "I've been in front of the camera for so long. I'm ready to talk about what happened behind it." People who like and dislike her are both excited to see what she does next. Diane Lane has shown that she is not only skilled, but also one of the most durable and versatile stars in Hollywood.